Hello, 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 and welcome Borderline Podcast Disordarians. Hope you had a good week, and I had an alright week myself. I had some. Actually, I was a bit ill for a few days. I don't know whether it was a migraine, whether apparently loads of people in my surroundings have had some sort of viral stuff going on. So maybe I picked that up. Yeah, I just didn't feel well for a few days and I was sick. And besides of that, I've seen my psychiatrist this week, and we talked about a lot of stuff. We did actually. We talked about some updates. The house is almost done, and the kittens are thriving. Pickle and Sarma are doing very well. They're very loud sometimes, which is a bit annoying, but I do love them very much, and I feel very, very happy to have them around. And they are a great addition to the family. And skills wise, I spoke with my therapist as well. And we worked into this. The mindfulness of others, and the validation. Just because recently it's been brought to my attention in a couple of one-on-one situations that I may not come across as being validating to other people, or although I'd like to believe I am. I never, I don't think I'm dismissive. I know that I overthink stuff, and I know that I usually multitask and I do loads of other things, but it's never with the intention of being dismissive or to hurt people around me. But it's been brought to my attention that sometimes that's how I come across. And so I thought I'd discuss it with my therapist, and I'd go through validating others, the skill of validating others, and practice that, and the mindfulness of others as well. And look, it's only been a few days since I've put it in practice, or since I've actively put it in practice, and I've been more aware of it, and I've noticed it, and it's been going okay. I think I guess time will tell, but yeah, look, we gotta do it, folks. We gotta do um, whatever it is, to make sure that the people you care about, the people around you are feeling seen, and even not necessarily just the people that are in your life, but I think people in general. It's a nice feeling to know that you've been listened to. I don't necessarily think you have to agree with everyone. I certainly don't, but acceptance is pretty important. It's pretty big, and it's nice to have it. And yeah, so that was the main thing for the week. I've tried to run. I think besides of the day when I was severely ill, I've managed to do at least 5 kilometers a day. That's like just over 3 miles, and it's okay. It's good, and I'm very happy about it. Now, this week's episode, it's with Eryn Tett, and she's a very good comedian. Wonderful comedian, and I've seen a couple of videos of her, and then we have a few. We know a few people, a few common friends. It As it happens, she's based up north now. She's in Manchester, and I'm in London. But I think for a while it was the other way around, and yeah, it was a great conversation. We talked a lot about the way um, she goes with promoting her work, and with the struggles that were through here through the COVID lockdown and everything, and how they've explored that creativity, and then We've talked about her approach in general in comedy, and how she finds, or like how her, I guess, how she works out, the observations, that she's doing. And you should check out her work, because it's good. I think. I mean, again, it's interesting, and it's wonderful, and I'm a fan of it. And we also talked about something really exciting that she was telling me about. It was this global megacorp Institute of Manchester, and their coin. But you'll find out more by listening to this episode. And yeah, make sure you check out her work. Make sure you check out my work. I've got some really exciting gigs coming up around the end of summer, so you got plenty of time to think about it, whether you want to join or not. But yeah, I'll catch you after the recording. So bye for now. Eryn, hello. How's it going?
Hello, I'm alright. How are you?
I'm very good. How what have you been up to recently? Have you been gigging much? What's going on with you?
Yep, some gigs here and there. The sun is out today. I feel like we're entering a new season.
Hopefully, yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's been quite miserable in the
yeah, yeah,
last couple of weeks. So it's actually nice to see some nice weather.
yeah,
Just for the context, you're based in Manchester, right?
yeah. I am.
Yeah, because I'm in London, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of miss Manchester, I think, sometimes, which is wild to think. No, in regard of like the weather and everything, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's that different though. I know
Yes.
people say like, "Oh, it's so rainy in Manchester," or "Oh, up north it's so cold." To me, it's like everything's the same. Everything's like
How long you've been based in Manchester for?
Since 2020. So the like pandemic hit and I was living in London at the time and I was like, "Oh, why am I here? This is
No
a
way.
terrible place to be." And then left. Yeah. Well, it's like there was a pandemic, so it's like well, nobody's allowed outside, so we all have to live in our tiny, tiny flats, which we pay so much money on. And there's no like the only reason I'm in London is for like the opportunities, and there's nothing.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, because almost everything was closed.
Yeah, so it's like a real like wow, this
Also,
place.
yeah, well, on the back of that, how was it? What was it like? Like, how long have you been doing comedy for?
A while. I actually so I grew up in Singapore, then I moved to the UK, and I did a degree in comedy at
In
in
London?
Southampton. In
Oh,
Southampton,
Southampton. Okay.
yeah. So where they did like an actual 3 year bachelor's degree.
And were you doing comedy while studying, or were you just like like what are you
It was
doing? Is in?
it was a comedy course, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, of course. No, but I meant as in like,
Oh
were you
yeah,
doing
yeah.
stand-up comedy?
Yeah, so it was so there was like stand up on the course, so then there was like a little bit. We did so some people would like put shows on around, so I did do a little bit, but
Oh, because
not.
I know. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say just not with any really. I no real idea of what that meant. I don't think.
Okay, because I remember I was chatting with Ali Woods a couple actually a few months ago now for this, and he did the improv when he was in uni. So that's why I was curious, whether you like studied comedy and then you're like, oh, did some stand-up comedy, and then you thought I'm just gonna get into it. So you studied it basically, and then is that when you moved from Singapore to the UK
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Southampton, and then you
for
moved from
uni.
Southampton to London?
Yeah, but I went to New York for a bit and did a comedy course in New York as well. So
No
that
way. How was it?
yeah, that was really good. I think that's when I kind of was like, oh, okay, this is like more fun to do.
No, and how
And
did you get into like what made you want to study comedy in the first place?
my mum found an article in a newspaper. So that's it's all just from like my mum saying, "Do you want to go do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay."
No way.
Yeah, so she's set me up
But
for
are your
this.
parents creative as well?
My parents are teachers, so that's why I lived in Singapore, because my parents were teachers.
Yeah.
So they moved to Singapore for that. So, my mum, I think, would have been like a dancer if anybody helped her do it. Do you get what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
today people didn't really push you to do those kind of things. So I think she would have done that. She was like super into drama and all of that stuff, but just
Right.
didn't have anybody cutting out newspaper
Oh.
articles for her. So, so she's
And
past that.
have they been visiting you since you were here?
Yeah. So yeah, they moved maybe a few years ago, but yeah, they always come and watch my gigs and stuff.
No way, nice. How did they find your what was the name of your show, the one that you were touring with last year?
That was Eryn Tett finds her audience.
And how what did they come to watch that?
Yeah, they watched that one like loads of times. They're always there.
That's so lovely. I think that's beautiful. And then you were saying that what was it like doing, I guess, comedy in London before the pandemic? Because I only moved here after I started in Manchester, so I've
Right.
never experienced that.
Um. Yeah, I think it just all seemed like very busy. I know that you can go and do like loads of spots. You can do a lot more spots in the week, can't you, there than in Manchester? There's like a lot more going on.
I think it depends, because I feel like even though there is a bigger selection, I actually found it easier to double up or like do multiple gigs when I was in Manchester.
Really?
Maybe because I was more like familiar with the city. Like I used to cycle
Yeah.
between gigs while in here. I've only been in London for about a year and a half now, but I rarely manage to double up, mostly because I'm not familiar with how to get to places.
Yeah. Well, it is really like spread out as well, so you could pick one up and then it actually takes you like 45 minutes to get to the other one.
Yeah, well, you see, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I remember I tried in one night to do I think three gigs, and I think I don't know how do you feel about like when are you most nervous? When you're about to do comedy, are you nervous? I mean, do you get nervous at all anymore, or do you do it before you're on stage, or do you like is it on stage? What does it feel like? What how do you channel that? If
Yeah,
you still
I do get nervous. I think it's right before, probably. I think
right.
that's sometimes during the day I feel a bit like, ugh, I gotta go do that tonight. Yeah, sometimes you're already like, ugh. But I think it's mostly is like right before, and then on stage is fine.
Nice. I mean, because I was gonna say, like with me in that day when I was doing the multiple gigs, I don't remember feeling more nervous, even the first time when I did comedy. Just because I was
Really?
like, yeah, I was in either the Elizabeth line, then I went on the Central line, then I had to go on
Yeah,
like the North, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what is happening. I don't know where I'm going, and I think that's when I
yeah,
kind of decided that I'm probably not yet
yeah.
about
No,
to.
with this, but yeah, I think traveling around everywhere always does add way more stress to everything as well. If you have to get like a train to somewhere, and it's like, yeah, the whole night before is just spent going like, is that train even gonna go that day? Like, will it, and what happens if it doesn't? There's all that stuff that you can't do anything about it, but you're still just stressed out about it.
Well, I think that's the problem because I do get sometimes I mean like I get in my head quite a bit and sometimes I'm like I could do better with X, Y, and Z. But then when I feel like loads of people use the thing about like, oh well, things are out of your control, but then
Yeah,
to me I get annoyed about the fact that they are out of my
yeah, yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
I'm like I wish I was the one driving the train, so then
yeah,
I know
yeah.
precisely
Much
what's
easier. Yeah,
yeah. What was it like to then, like obviously doing comedy before, like during the pandemic, did anything change? How did you, I guess, channel your creativity, when there was nowhere to gig? Did you do like online stuff? Did you
During
start doing something else?
yeah, I think it's such a blurry time, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
what was happening. I was making little things and putting them on the internet. Um, they didn't like explode in a way that. So I think some people are like, oh, this is for me, but I was like, there's nothing else to do, so I just will try to do. But actually, if you think about it, it's kind of crazy because before the pandemic, like reels didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have reels, and TikTok only just came about, so it was like, and now it's like reels are everything, and it's such a shift. It's like this weird, like few years of being in like a weird hell, and now everything's different.
How do you
I,
find that then? How do you find promoting or like no like how do you find your doing your like creative work now? Do you have to spend more time into creating content than say, I don't know, write for a show, or did anything change basically because of this?
yeah, I mean, I've not figured it out. I think I probably have a pretty similar approach to most people, which is like, oh, it's all about just put everything on Instagram. It's all about Instagram and TikTok, and then do that for like 2 weeks, and then go, I hate everything about the internet, and then get on. And then you could like just going in these cycles, which is not how the algorithm works like at all to make stuff happen. It's like you have to do it like all the time. But if you go through these like very normal human cycles of like, oh, this is the best. Oh no, I hate this, then it just doesn't work.
It's wild, yeah. I think I got to the point now where I use a lot of like AI stuff to, just like basically put my posts up so I don't have to do it myself.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
agree with you. I think I had a couple of weeks where, I would put stuff out and it goes really well. And then
yeah,
after a couple of weeks, I'm tired, because
yeah, yeah,
I used to
exactly.
have all these alarms on my phone. I don't know how did you do it, but like to me, I had alarms on my phone at like 9 a.m. post, 1
Wow.
p.m. post, 5 p.m. post. And it was just, this is too much for me.
Yeah, that's commitment level that I did not quite ever achieve.
No, again, it worked for like a week or two,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then
Yeah.
and
And
then I
then you
just
just
go,
run out of steam because you're like, this is, what am I doing?
yeah, exactly. And then like gigging in between that as well, or trying to
Yeah,
write stuff, and yeah, it was quite wild. How do you find it? Well, because now you've lived in Manchester for what, a couple of, I mean, you said,
yeah,
well, since so
almost.
three, four
Oh, yeah,
years.
yeah.
How did you find working up north?
Yeah, I prefer living up here, I think, just because there's more space. Uh, just being able to go outside and stuff and have different rooms to go in. I have different rooms to go in my house now. In London, it was like, it's like the bedroom or the kitchen, Here, I've got different rooms. It's amazing. Um, and for comedy, I guess I'm kind of, I like it, and I also think it's not as good as it could be. So I really like the underground coming up scene, the like what people are putting on around the town. I think all of that's really good. But I think once you're on like that pro circuit and just doing gigs in horrible pubs to horrible people, or is just, and it's like it's all very old fashioned, I think, still.
Oh, you mean up north?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. How do you wanna yeah,
So I
like
think I think our like underground, so the the places where you go to try your new material, or
yeah.
the midweek gigs and stuff, I think they're all really good. But there's, I think, still a lot of the stuff is quite old fashioned still, like more pro scene stuff.
As in the public perception, or is it as in the
I
setup, I
think,
guess, of the night?
yeah, I think in terms of like the material that people are doing and the styles that people want,
Oh,
and what goes
interesting.
down well with like audiences.
Wow. Okay. And how did you find?
And I
How
think
did
it
you?
makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's like the place where like things are where people are experimenting, and the new people with new ideas is always just going to be more interesting than the more tried and tested stuff.
Oh yeah, I get you because I think is in one of those situations where if it's too different or if it's too new, then nobody's or like people don't know how to feel about it, and it's
Yeah,
kind of yeah. I think I heard about this before where people in some situations you hear people saying, "Oh, there is nothing new," and then something new comes up, and they're like, "We want." Classic stuff, and then
yeah, yeah,
where do you draw the line? Like, what do you?
yeah.
I think
Yeah, I think it's just the difference probably between like stand up as entertainment and stand up as like an art form that people want to play around with, I guess. And I think for
Interesting.
lots of people on the weekend, they just want to drink 5 pints and be
Uh,
entertained. Yeah,
yeah.
they're like not there for the for the
Well,
art form.
I think I heard about this before, and I think I've seen it sometimes where, I find it when I write sometimes I write some things where I'd like to think they're like clever,
Yeah,
and then I get the feedback that, oh, that's people have to think a bit too much to get
yeah,
it. And then you write something that's, I guess, easier or like something that just hits straight away, and then it's like, oh, that's too easy.
yeah, yeah.
and
You're
I'm
like,
like,
what do you want us to do?
yeah, I always I had this idea at one point, I think, where I said that I'd probably hand like IQ tests, when before people enter the venue, and
Yeah,
I'll have them like fill it up so then I can see what's the
which
level.
way are you gonna go?
Yeah, because otherwise, I don't know, it's just so hard to. But I guess it's yeah, it's always interesting because how did you find and how do you deal with this?
I've recently dealt with it by just not going to those gigs that I don't want to go to.
Nice. I think that's very healthy, to be honest.
I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of people. Well, I think this is also a very old-fashioned trope, which is like you gotta go and do the bad ones where people hate you, and you gotta figure out a way. And that just makes you stronger. Being booed just makes you stronger. And I'm like, or we could just not. I could just not do those ones. It's like obviously if that's the route you want to go down, then work at it and challenge yourself and do that. But I just find that there are other places that are up for what I'm doing, so why don't I just go to those people?
I think,
It's
yeah, I
like
think
it's because I'm also wasting their time. It's not like some people have gone out for a specific thing for a night that they want to enjoy, and I'm like ruining that for them, and they're ruining my night. So let's just not.
yeah.
Like, but there's other people where it's like they're super up for it, and this is exactly what they have gone out for their night for. So it's like this is fine. We can,
That
you know,
sounds like such a beautiful and such a nice idea to because I think this is what I found, and again, I feel like obviously you're in a much higher level, and you've been around for longer, and you know things better than I do. But I found that, for example, in my level, where you get people who are either like you have to grind, like you have to go out every night, like you said, you do the worst places, and you just got to do it again and again and again. And the amount of times that I've had to basically take them, like I would do, I don't know, gig almost every night, and then I would have to take 2 or 3 weeks off to recover
yeah,
from
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then I just
yeah,
found that it's counterintuitive. So I think the fact that
yeah,
it's again, like you said, it's not a one, I guess, like one size fits all, where it's like this is the way to do it and that's it.
yeah,
I guess is
yeah.
what.
I think it's fine to take a different path as well. I think that's what happened to me was basically my recovery my recovery time from going to places that didn't want me was getting longer. You know, so like at first you're kind of like, oh, you know, that's fine, on to the next one. But then it was just really getting me down in ways that it was like, this doesn't feel worth it to me, because there are ways to do this where everybody involved is having a nice time.
I mean, have you ever had this thing where I sometimes, because basically I have I have an analogy now where I think that unless if I go to, so say an open mic, or if I go to a place where I'm like, oh, the audience actually doesn't seem to be like, or again, mostly if it's an open mic, I usually tend to not do my, say, good material, just because I do find that I then lose confidence in it. So then when
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
about to say it in front of a, like you said, paying audience, for example, if I
yeah,
do like on a semi-pro or pro show or etc., then I I don't start with this sort of, oh, I trust me, I know what I'm doing. I'm more of a, would you like this?
yeah, yeah,
And my way of, yeah, like I think battling this is that if I go on a night where I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna do my new, or like I'm not gonna do what I already believe in being good stuff, because if it doesn't go well, it's just gonna
yeah.
break my heart.
Yeah, yeah, it makes you more sad because you like show people like, these are my babies, and they're like, fuck your babies.
Yeah, fuck.
You're like, oh, that's
Yeah,
really,
yeah, not interested.
yeah,
Next.
yeah. But I think also that's why like tried and tested stuff is also can get kind of boring as well. Like, and why I prefer like the more kind of new material underground scene, I think, is because you get to go up with like a new idea and be like, let's figure this out together, and I find that to be quite fun.
What's your I guess what's your if you want to walk us through as again as much as possible, not no need of a lot of details, but like how what's your creative process? Like, do you write, say, a whole bit first, or do you just have ideas that then you go on stage with, and that's where you form the actual, I guess, story joke? What how
Yeah,
does it, like, how does, I guess the question is, how does like Erin's brain does it?
I think, well, my thing is that I don't tell stories or anything long, so I don't really have much to like work out on stage. So it's more like short jokes. Um, so I'll do the short jokes and then, but I think it's because, so I like write the jokes, but for me the fun bit is the stuff that's like around the jokes. So like creating the vibe leading up to it, or like taking the temperature of the room afterwards. Like those are the interesting bits to me. And I think that's the stuff that builds from going on stage, if that makes sense.
It does, and it sounds very interesting, because I don't think I've spoken with anyone about, like, who has this sort of creative process.
Yeah, I
So how
think
do you? Sorry, go on.
no, I was just gonna say that I think it's like there are jokes and you can like write jokes, but it's yeah, the extra, those extra bits that I have found more recently is like, okay, that's where my who I am really comes out.
And how do you prepare for a show then? Like, how do you know precisely what you're doing when you go on stage, or do you kind of like play it by the ear?
So it is like a lot of playing by ear, I think. So it's, I have the jokes and I know what the jokes are and I'll do the jokes. And then I think, so basically all comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is going to places that are not really up for what I'm doing. Because always in those places there'll be somebody who's really into it and then some people who aren't. So I have a tendency to kind of like split the room quite a lot. And so I've had to over the years, I've been forced into kind of having to play that dynamic. So because of that, so that there is okay, so you do need to go and do the bad gigs and the terrible ones, but there is a point where you can say you don't want to do those because you've gained what you need to gain from them. So I'm going back on myself a bit here. I'm saying you do need to do the shit
I
gigs.
think it's very good point, though. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's very valid. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's like, I'm going on a tangent now, but I think there is like, people think that you have to keep doing it, but I think you can draw a line where you're like, I've got everything I need from this, and now I can move on. But yeah, so because I've had to deal with that dynamic so often, I have built up a catalogue of tricks to kind of bring people on board who are not on board, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
And now that's kind of how I do stand up, is not just material, but it's like, oh, you are not so into that, but you really liked that. Oh, talk to that. Then it's like building a kind of weird relationship between everybody in the room, if that makes any sense.
It makes. I mean, it does, and I have the picture in my head, and it sounds incredible because I feel like, yeah, because of the way I write or like the way I do comedy, um, it's so different from what I would do. And like what
Yeah.
I'm usually like, here's the story, here's the hooks in the story, and here's the punchline, and we're moving on to something else. And it's so interesting to actually hear about like your way of, oh, actually it's about the energy in between. It's actually about like paying, because I feel like to me the only way I pay attention. It might sound bad, but it's not. I'm not phrasing the best I can. But to me, the only thing that I'm getting is, are people laughing or not? Like I don't
Yeah.
really go. Besides of actually a time when I remember doing this joke and someone just like stared like at me through the rest of the entire set, and
Yeah.
it was soul crushing. But besides of that, it's kind of like, is there can I hear laughter? Yes, okay, fine.
Okay.
While to hear someone who's like, again, paying more attention to this is just fantastic. I wish I had the capability to do it.
Yeah, I think it took me a really, really long time to be in the room to begin with, because I think that is kind of like, sometimes when I did comedy at the beginning, I was not really in the room because I was just doing my material, and then once you kind of dare to go in the room, like, yeah, there can be a limit, but I think it's just because I've kind of been forced to from just people's reactions to me. So it's like it's a natural route to go down, I think.
Well, actually, I was going to say, coming back to your point earlier about, you do those gigs and then you decide not to do them. It actually sounds, it's such a brilliant point, I the closest I find myself to this is that sometimes I do feel like these are gigs that I don't want to do. I'd rather go somewhere else. I'd rather do. I have a kind of like a list of places where or no places, because it sounds. I guess. I don't want to, again, I don't know, upset any promoters or anything like that. But I agree with you. I feel like sometimes you kind of know what to expect, and if you're like, am I getting what I want from the night? And then if the answer is no, then don't bother
Yeah,
to do it. Like, rather, I feel like I'd rather spend the time to again either write, either do something else, and then wait until I get the gig where I'm like, oh, I'm getting some value out of this. That's why I'm going out to do it.
yeah.
But
I think it's just deciding when that's good, and obviously I still go to places which are, I just feel like sometimes the room isn't set up for people to win. And if I just feel like the promoter wants everybody to do well, I just think it's a nicer vibe, then sometimes you just get thrown out. Nobody's paying attention or anything, and they're all just talking, and you're like, ah.
How did you find your sorry, how did you find your because you were saying like at the beginning you do your material, and then when did you kind of figured out what you want to do comedy wise? If that does my question make sense, or I might think of a different way to ask it.
Go do double up. I think
Cool.
I kind of know what you're saying, but then do a different
So
answer.
I'll use an example. Say you've done comedy you started doing comedy, and you're like, here's my material, I'm doing it now. At what point after in your comedy journey, comedy career, did you kind of decided on this is who I am, or like this is my way?
Yeah. I think probably when I just tried to do stories and then was like, this is shit and I shouldn't do this. I think when you like experiment with something else and you're like, it's not me. I'll go somewhere else.
It's
I
funny.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
lot of like weird like philosophies on comedy and stuff that I think of doing, but basically I think I would sum up what I try to do is it's observational comedy on stuff that nobody's ever thought about before, but now that they've been told it and they're aware of it, they'll see it everywhere.
Wow.
I think is like the idea of what I'm trying to do. So it's not, I think there's observational comedy where people go like, oh, I know that's funny because it's true, and they already know it. I try not to do that, and I try to do the stuff that people don't know that they've seen before. Does that make sense? I
It
keep
does make
saying, does that make sense?
it does, and that's absolutely fine. I don't. I mean, you can say that, but I was wondering now actually. Then, when you write, when you think of your material, right? How harsh how harsh are you on your own ideas?
Um,
When because you're talking about the
yeah,
observational bit, and you're like, oh, this is so common. I reckon someone else has done it, or it's too easy. I want to like take it up a notch. Like how
yeah,
much of your material you kind of like you write it down, or even before you write it down, when do you decide what goes where? Like good
yeah. I
pile,
think I
bad pile, I guess. Or
probably ditch a lot of ideas before they come to anything, which is why I don't have very much material. This is how you don't get any jokes. Yeah, I think there's also ways to package things differently as well. So, like, there's ways. I definitely have jokes that if they were like the words were in a different order, I think that they'd be quite bad.
Interesting.
But because they're packaged in that way, I think they're fun.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I find myself in that position. I think especially because like I'm not a natural, or like I'm not a born English speaker, so I do
Yeah,
find. But I think that this is the reason why, to me, I feel like, oh, if I say something, I gotta make sure that I say it in this way, because then if I like stumble on my words, then, or like if I don't say it in the right way, then that's it. It's done. It's ruined.
yeah. But then
While,
that's also like that's kind of is like a strength and an advantage, right? Because you're actually aware of the words you're saying.
well, it's funny because
More strength in the
I think so, and I think also one of the things that I found, and I actually I was going to say I kind of feel I don't feel bad about it, is that I feel like to me it's quite easier to do like wordplay than it is for like again
yeah,
people who are say like English born comedians, or people who
yeah,
speak with like a British or American or Canadian accent, because
yeah,
people to me are like, oh, he's just like, it's kind of like, oh, he just discovered this word.
yeah. I was gonna say because I do a lot of like wordplay jokes, and I've done it with like foreign audiences before, and they actually sometimes appreciate it more I've had that before, and I'm like, oh, this might not work because like nobody's a native English speaker, and then they actually get it straight away more. I think probably because you're so aware of the words and the different meanings of them.
And I think the concentration as well, I
Yeah,
think it's
exactly.
kind of next level because I notice when I listen when I go to like open mics or like, I mean any comedy night, and sometimes I have to be again I stay at the back of the room or something, and I actively listen, and I'm like, oh yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
I kind of I feel like I have to see the words. I picture them as the comedian says them. While I
yeah.
don't know how it's in other people's like heads, but have you done comedy outside of England? Have you been like traveling?
I did my show in Iceland, but everybody speaks English in Reykjavik, so it's not
How,
like too much of a.
how did you get to go to Iceland? What made you?
So I know the guy who like does. So he was in the Manchester scene. Andrew Sim, if you know, I'll do a shout out to his Reykjavik Fringe Festival, comedy festival. So he runs it, and I went out before to do a few spots, and then I took my show out for the festival
What
last
was it
year.
like?
It's really good. That it just seems to be like, yeah, really open-minded people who are interested in seeing stuff, which is
And
so much of the battle.
and then when you how did it go for you to, I mean, like, what was your, I guess, expectations? Because, you were talking about like how in England, like, yeah, sometimes you find that, we go to a gig and it's like, oh, they want tradition, like old, not even traditional, but old school stuff.
Yeah.
What were your expectations, sorry, when you went to, say, Iceland? But that's again not necessarily when you took your show there, but even when you went for the first time, did you kind of expect them to be on board straight away? Did you expect a bit of a battle? What was it
Yeah.
like?
So I had my expectations were kind of set up by the fact that Andrew kind of was like hand picking people in a way to bring over because
Oh, okay.
of knowing people's styles and what would be appreciated there. So I went under the assumption that like they love alternative stuff and they love like weird things and so my expectations was like hopefully that will be the case. And then I went and then it was. So that was good. But I also did comedy in Berlin where I thought it would be similar and it just wasn't. And I think the difference was that like these people in Iceland they were really coming for the comedy and that's what they were interested in. Whereas in Berlin it seemed to be the clubs seemed to be more like touristy places. So I think
Mm.
I think the difference is sometimes is if something comes up first on Google when you type in like comedy clubs in and the
Oh,
first
okay.
thing everybody clicks on that link is probably not going to be the best comedy club. Just
Interesting.
this is my theory. And I think it's just because like people are just going because that's the first thing that they saw. It's not nobody's like a regular of the club. You
Yeah.
know, I think places where it's like, they always go at the beginning, the MC will be like, who's been here before? And I think if you get a good 50% cheer, like that's going to be a really good place.
Interesting.
If they have
Okay.
regulars, and the regulars set the tone and they know what to expect. And then the people around the regulars, like the vibe kind of like sets out from them.
Oh, right, because the people who have been there before and kind of understand the night and how it works, etc.,
Yeah,
set the
yeah,
tone, and then
yeah.
everyone else picks it up.
Yeah, I think so. There's some weird
Oh,
like
wow.
psychological thing happening. Whereas if everybody's never been there before, it's like a free for all. It's like
Well,
this
have
could
you
be.
ever have you ever heard about this rule where apparently some comedy clubs don't allow for large groups to
Oh yeah,
go in? Because apparently,
Yeah,
because there is, I heard this thing where someone was saying that there is always an alpha in the
yeah,
group,
yeah,
and you, because of, again, if it's like a group of like four or more, they
yeah,
don't allow them to either sit together or to buy tickets together, because they're
yeah,
like, because if one doesn't, like the alpha say, doesn't laugh,
yeah, yeah.
then nobody else on that group would laugh because
Yeah,
of the
they all
peer
shut
pressure.
down. Yeah, I've seen that happen at like, small like community kind of gigs. So it'll be like the one thing that's happening in the village tonight.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen where I've gone like my first few, everybody's having a really nice time, and then suddenly the one guy is like, actually, I'm not into it, and then you just watch the tables like shut down. It's somebody should come and like do a film study thing on it, because I think there's so much more to it than what we give credit to like comedians for, because it really is, it could just be one guy who like the village respects and now he's not into it, and now nobody's allowed to be into it,
Oh
because
my
it's
God.
embarrassing, right? The next day you go to the shops and you see somebody, and then it's like you were the weirdo who liked the
Laugh.
stuff, and now that's all everybody's talking about.
Oh my God, can you imagine? I kind of like have this little thing in my head now where I can imagine someone kind of like trying to like find you on social media the next day and be like, "Look, you were great. I wish I
Yeah,
could laugh." But
anonymous account.
yeah, you get there like one of those like anonymous user or something on
Yeah,
Facebook. When you
yeah,
get the comments.
yeah, and they're like, "I'm so sorry, but I just my reputation."
Yeah, like
That's
my boss was there.
There's really good. I think the best audience members are the ones, when you can hear one person laughing really loudly, and it's like you are just going for it. Like if everybody just, it doesn't even matter if other people don't like it. It's like you know what you like and you're up for it, and it doesn't matter who else is in the room for these people.
I actually I kind of like struggled with this. I think even again from watching comedy by being in the audience as a comedian, because I think when I started, I was always in the heads of, because I'm very like socially not fairly awkward, like because I don't know how to speak to people, as in, I mean, besides of the fact that I'm like interviewing you.
Yeah,
But in general, I feel like without, say, a purpose, I find it hard to make
yeah,
conversation. So in my head, I thought, oh, I'm just gonna laugh at everything that someone
yeah,
does on stage. And for a while, I remember sometimes, especially, I think in London, you go on some nights and some people would say like the most randomest or like either bad or sometimes like borderline
yeah,
vile things, and I would
yeah,
still like
yeah,
giggle because I would be like, oh my God, I have to laugh because they're on stage and I don't want to
yeah, yeah,
upset. And it took me ages. I think I was actually chatting with my partner the other day where I was like, I think I got to the point where if I want to laugh, I laugh even if nobody does. But then
yeah,
if I don't want to laugh, I'm not gonna laugh. But
yeah, yeah.
it took me almost 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And like you're a comedian as well, and we're like, but that's it, isn't it? That's going through the minds of anybody who's in an audience, and it's like that is like a self-growth journey to go on in itself. And we're asking people so much from them to be like, be an individual in a group, and it's a difficult thing to ask people to
It's
do.
yeah, I always feel like I kind of like, oh, am I breaking the matrix now?
Yeah, it's this newfound power.
Yeah, like, oh my God, I see all like zeros and ones everywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Now I was going to ask you about your talking about like zero and ones and like breaking codes. You're working on something else besides of stand-up comedy.
yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that?
So it's the Global Megacorp Institute of Manchester, and basically they're these like immersive events where I'm a representative of GMIM, so I help run the events, and basically you could just come and change your life for the better. And also invest in GMIM coin, because our CEO has discovered that this is a big secret from our CEO, basically, and she's finally revealed that on the 15th of December 2027, the global economy is going to crash and GMM coin is going to take over. So you need to gain as much GMM coin as you can now for the economy crash in, 4 years' time now?
2024,
Three,
yeah,
three and a,
three,
three
three
and
and
a
a
bit.
bit.
Yeah,
God, I gotta dig up the gold now. And
yeah. You gotta
and
get to the.
do they do it only? Is it only based in Manchester, or is it UK wide? Is it worldwide? How big does it go?
So we've been doing our events in Manchester because the CEO chose the great city of Manchester to do these events. But there are plans to. We've got some other things in the works. A few more cities coming. So more
UK,
people will get the chance. Yes, in the UK.
nice. Any and also like well now talking about your comedy, are you coming to London anytime soon, or are you what's your plan for the rest of the year? Are you going
Um,
anywhere outside of I guess Manchester, or you for the time being it's an open agenda?
for comedy stuff, I think so. I'm trying to set up a few split shows with but they're London based actually. Michael May and Luke Chilton. We've got one booked for Manchester, and we're trying to get a few more dates around. So like just kind of like a new half hour kind of thing. It's just it's difficult from well, basically I wrote a show and it was like very kind of there was a lot of concept to it. So I don't have like a show concept, but it's just new material, I guess.
You know, actually, a question on the back of that, because I think I know I crossed paths with Luke a couple of times,
Oh yeah.
and how do you? Is it the first time you're gonna split a show with, I guess, like a non-alternative? Because I find him a bit more like storytelling, observational, right?
Yeah.
So
So
how do you find that? Like, how do you find it easier of a balance, or is it?
I think with us three, I think we all have different styles and we all do different things. But I think we all come at comedy from the same angle, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I think it's like you'll have if you watch like three people in a row, there'll be like different styles but kind of have like an underlining, we all respect comedy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's for sure because he's brilliant. I was just curious
Yeah,
about
yeah.
how because I was more. I mean, yeah. That my wonder was, are you kind of like, oh, okay, cool. We want that to be like different, or like how much different one act from the other can be to
Yeah.
to keep I guess a balance, or it's good when they are very different because then you like balance each other out. I was
Yeah.
just curious about how do you kind of see that.
I think it's good when things are different. Like I always like going on if I was going to go on after somebody, it would be after somebody who's like quite high energy, I think, is like good for me because then I can like use the energy and twist it into what I'm doing. Whereas like I think
Oh,
going on after somebody who's quite low energy is a bit more difficult. So I think
interesting.
they fit together in that sense as well. Yeah. So I think
Wow,
it's
okay.
about that kind of approach of like who's it good to go
Well,
on
this is very interesting because I think, and that's why I enjoy doing semi-pro nights when the lineup is more based on like you said, like the promoter usually like would pay attention to what's the type of comedy and how you build it up. Because for once, I'm a bit of I think I'm low energy, and I'm a
Yeah.
storyteller and I do observation, but I'm very chill back, like chill. Sorry, I combined to
Yeah, yeah,
lay
yeah.
back and yeah, I find that if I do, like, if there are two laid back comedians in a row, it's really hard to get the laughs
Yeah,
because even though it's fun, like I found I think actually a couple of nights ago I did the show and I was after another comedian who again she's brilliant, you know, but she's similar energy with me. And then I
yeah,
found that when I went on, people were like giggling or like I saw smiles, but
yeah,
nobody was it was just silent.
yeah,
And then someone went on stage and like picked up the mic and started being very, you know,
yeah, big
like
and
bouncing around. Yeah, and then
yeah,
they were back. And I was like,
back. Yeah, yeah,
wow. Yeah. It's
yeah,
really interesting to see that.
yeah. And I think that's yeah. I think that curating a night as well is like a talent in itself that a lot of people don't think about too much as well.
Which
You
I
know, because going
think
back to back.
it's good to pay attention because I think in one of those situations it keeps it just helps out everyone. You know, like you said, it helps out the acts, it helps out
Yeah,
the patrons, you know, of the place.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, I find it. So you were saying you're doing the works in progress, so split bills, right?
yeah. I think
Nice.
that's what we're gonna try and
Well,
just do half an hour each.
if people want to find you to like check out your work, what's your handles or like where are you most active? Where do you promote basically your incoming events?
So I'm on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, but I don't remember. So it's Eryn Tett Comedy, but basically my name is like impossible for anybody to spell. So, but once you find it, I'm the only one. But that is like a pain. Do you have that problem?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I was very annoyed the other day, or many times, where I tried to change my handle and it's taken for some reason. Like I feel
Oh,
like that there are five Levis in this world,
yeah.
but yet they all chose to use those handles. And now even like for my website, I had to put stand up in front because
Oh,
I,
really?
yeah, because Lev was taken, Levi was taken, Levy, you know, and
Oh, man.
yeah, so I kind of feel that, but I also feel like at least yeah, I don't know because I was gonna say because you Erin like with an Y.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I've never met anyone else called Erin, so that's why I wouldn't know how
Yeah, and then
to.
my surname as well, like, doesn't really exist. So it's good if you type in Eryn Tett into Google, I'm the only one. But it's just that nobody knows how to spell my name. It's Eryntett, but I've had every variation on my last name. People are not. They
Have you
want to
ever
put a
had
Y at the end. They want to put extra E's. They like.
where there are
There's just everything. Tetty, like they're just.
how what was the were you ever I guess did anyone call your name wrong on before you went on stage?
Yeah, I
What
think
was the
yeah,
funniest that
I,
you
I just like I think they try and make it into a name that they have heard before. You know, I've been Aaron, I've been Erin Tate. People love Tate because they've heard it, so they know it, and their
yeah.
brains are like, we will not accept a new name that we have not heard of before. But yeah, yeah,
I think it's funny how and I found a lot of people trying to like use names that are a bit more like I guess like English so that like the amount of people that I've met and I mean even me because like my the spelling on my passport for example is different is still
oh
so I had to go through this process of giving my rebirthing my
yeah, yeah,
myself with and then you still get people who are like how do you like Levi as in the jeans and I'm like yes like how do you
yeah,
spell that and I was like you just asked me if it's Levi's in the jeans. I thought you'd know.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Didn't you read it to know?
Yeah, like how do you buy it when you go online? Did you go like jeans with L in it?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, it was lovely chatting with you today.
Yes.
I really,
Thanks
I
for
really, I really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything you wanted to say before we part ways?
having me. I guess if anybody's in Manchester on June 6th and wants to change their life for the better, I'm at Fierce Bar, and that's where it is.
And is it gonna be your that's with Luke, the work in
No,
progress, or
that's G-Man.
nice? So is
That's
that's gonna be the two of you splitting an hour?
no. So that's the G-Man show.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, but I do actually have the date for the other one. Is May something. May 31st.
So May
At
31st and
and June 6th.
June 6th. Perfect. Well,
Perfect.
Eryn, thank you. We'll put your like handle and everything in the bio when we release the episode. Once again, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Okay, so how was it? Was it good? Was it what you hoped for? Was it better? Was it worse? How was it? I hope it was good. I mean, look, it was good. It was very enjoyable for me to do it, and I hope it was just as enjoyable, at least for you to listen to it. And I hope to have you back next week. There's a lot of cool stuff happening, and a lot of very interesting people, very much more interesting people have signed up for this, and I'll have them on. So stay in touch. And yeah, check us out next week, and check out the bio of this episode. And there you can see the handles of like Aaron's handle and mine, and you know how it works, I guess. I hope. If not, well, the way it works is that I just post it there, and you kind of, check us out. But that's all from me. And stay skillful until next week. Bye. I mean, stay skillful beyond next week. Next week. Stay skillful in general, but we'll have another check in next week. Bye bye. From me, Pickle, and Sarma.